What is up, guys? I'm TNTReviews, creator of TNT Films Entertainment. Mystery Science Theater 3000 is one of my favorite shows. It's what made me love the idea of riffing bad movies with my friends. For those who don't know, it's about a guy named Joel, who's an employee at the Gizmonic Institute. One day he's just doing his job like usual, but the mad scientists who run the institute decided to launch him up into space and torture him with some of the worst films ever made. Why? Because they don't like him, apparently. Luckily, Joel decided to create some robot friends to help him get through and make fun of the terrible movies they're forced to watch. That and help him survive on the satellite of love. The show originally started in 1988 on a local TV station in Minneapolis called KTMA TV 23, but got its official nationwide debut the following year on the Comedy Channel, which later became Comedy Central. It lasted a long while too, airing for 7 seasons and 149 episodes, until unfortunately, they decided not to renew it. But that's okay, because immediately afterwards, the Sci-Fi Channel swooped in and renewed the show for 3 more seasons, until they too canceled it. 18 years later, it got a brief 20-episode revival on Netflix until it, you guessed it, got the axe. But just this year, the show's been revived again, this time on their own streaming platform called the Gizmoplex. What exactly is the Gizmoplex, you ask? Well, as far as I know, it's kind of like an Amazon or Vudu, where you can buy or rent individual episodes of the show, and if you have some sort of member pass, you can watch all the new episodes as they are live, along with other special events occurring on the platform. You can also watch the first 10 seasons for free, in which I think is pretty cool. So, since I've been a fan for a long while now, I figured I'd take this time to talk about their one and only theatrical riff. Yep, there was a Mystery Science Theater movie, released in 1996. And it's called, well, Mystery Science Theater 3000 the movie. Alright, so MST3K the movie is directed by Jim Mallon, who's also the producer, one of the writers, and the voice of Gypsy, or GPC as we call her now. It stars Michael J. Nelson, who was the host at the time, along with Trace Beaulieu and Kevin Murphy, all reprising their roles from the show. So what's the story about? Well, honestly, that's something I've been wanting to talk about. For a while, I kept debating on whether or not I should even do this review, because I don't think there's too much to say about the story. It's just a high-budget MST3K episode shown in theaters, that's it. But what happened in the making of this film, that's a whole different can of beans. I actually feel bad for the people who worked on this. They went through so much crap just to get it made. They were so annoyed by their experiences with having to work with a major studio, they called this their least satisfying project they ever worked on. And it's all because of one thing: executive meddling. And why is that exactly? Well, first of all, it got barely any advertising when it first came out because unfortunately the studio who distributed it cared more about their other film, Barbed Wire. Because in their minds, they thought, ooh, look at Pamela Anderson, she's so hot! She's way better than a guy and 2 robots riffing bad flicks together, am I right? But I digress. There were some jokes the executives didn't get, so they had to change them. They threw in some unnecessary swearing just so they could give the film a PG-13 rating. Not that it's bad or anything, but at least they didn't tell the writers to drop the F-bomb. And it was originally going to have a different ending, but the writers had to scrap it because the studio thought it would make the film too long. When in reality, the movie is actually shorter than a typical episode of the show. You see, they're usually around an hour and 30 minutes, or 2 hours if you count the commercial signs. The final cut, however, is only an hour and 14 minutes. So that's about 16 minutes shorter than a regular episode. And you know what else? This is the reason why Joel Hodgson and Trace Beaulieu left the show after seasons 5 and 7 respectively. While Joel left due to creative differences over even making the film, Trace left because of the horrible executive interference. Also, you may have noticed that there's no TV's Frank anywhere, and that's because this was after the season 6 finale, which was his last episode. But I think he left for a different unrelated reason. But enough of all that, what are my thoughts on the film in general? Well, it's not a huge surprise, but I actually really love it. The writing and humor is still top-notch, Tom Servo and Crow still crack me up, and I love the sets, especially the door sequence. There's also a scene I thought was really creative. It's when Mike was trying to get the Hubble off the satellite by using its mechanical arms. I thought that was cool. Oh, and that part of the beginning where Crow was trying to escape to Earth even though they're still in space is pretty funny, and very in character of him. Also, Dr. Forrester is noticeably a lot more evil than usual. going as far as to physically torture the main characters. It kind of reminds me of Plankton in the first SpongeBob movie, where he was also more antagonistic, and he basically took over the world. Ain't that something? In conclusion, I dig it. They still managed to put out a good movie, despite all the changes they had to make. So if you ever want to watch a high-budget MST3K episode, there you go. I think you're gonna like it just as much as I did. So sit back, grab a snack, repeat to yourself that it's just a show, and you should really just relax. Until then, I'm TNTReviews, and I'll see you in the next video.